Hello, everyone. This is Chris Morris for the Cat Chat podcast for Center for Arts and Technology. We're going to do something a little different here today. Normally, we speak to alumni or instructors at the school, people from industry, but we actually have something different here. We have starting off with, we have a current student. We have someone currently taking classes at the school. We have Shy Kid. How's it going, Shy?
It's doing pretty good. How are you doing?
We're doing great today. I'm excited to talk to you about this project that you have. So you and your partner Curtis have done a short film called Like and Follow. Is that
We
correct?
sure have. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an absolute blast getting to do it.
Great. And this is something that's been, we'll talk about more in detail, I guess, in a second here, but it's on the reelyouth.ca website as of the September 10th. Is that
I
correct?
believe so, yeah. And it'll also
Yeah.
be on YouTube on their YouTube channel.
Cool. And we'll talk more about that in a second here. We start off with these things with just their background. How did you find out about Center for Arts and Technology and end up going to school there?
Actually, it's a pretty crazy story. I actually come from a very small town in Saskatchewan called Tisdale. And so it was all inspired by my animation teacher because despite being in a really little town where, there isn't too much funding, there isn't too much space or, ability for teachers of all different walks of life to be there, it's just whatever you have in this tiny little bubble. Mr. Jansen was able to really help inspire students and give them a jump start in animation because he himself was able to write, I believe it was the package or whatever teachers get for actually making that course, the curriculum. He was the one who did all of that. And so instead of being compensated with money or anything, he said that he wanted a little animation studio or room built in TMSS, and that's what we had happen. So in this tiny little small town, we actually had an incredible arsenal of computers and an entire space to do all of that in, and of course a teacher who was absolutely inclusive, enthusiastic, and really, really excited to be able to involve kids in something that they normally wouldn't have access to. And so I happen to be one of those kids. I grew up absolutely loving art, delving into all sorts of coding, design studies, wasn't really sure where I was going. And so I found an absolute passion and inspiration in life for being able to throw art and technology together in animation. So my mom and I ended up in sort of the final stretch of my 12th grade trying to figure out where on earth I wanted to go. And Cato seemed to be just the right choice for me. I grew up with autism and I'm still growing with it. And so I struggle with large class sizes. I need that one on one interaction. And Cato was able to provide not only those, but also at the time a grant and help with student services for finding, anything else in the area you might need. Just all of that support. It ended up being more of a community than you're just a number in a university. And that's what really drew me here.
That's wonderful to hear. That's absolutely wonderful. So at Tisdale, I've been to Tisdale. It's kind of near Melfort, right? It's
Yeah, exactly. About 20 minutes away.
Yeah, I've been there. So was it just that your teacher told you about this course and you looked it up online, or how did
Yeah,
that
my
work
mom
out?
and I found it. And
Okay.
because I ended up being one of the students that sort of floundered from hanging out with the guys and hanging out with the girls, everywhere in between, I didn't necessarily have one friend group. I was able to make a lot of connections with other students that had the same passions and interests as me. And so when my mom found about this school that was so diverse, inclusive, and very student focused, we were able to sort of share around what we had found and go to boot camps and stuff. And not only did it inspire me to go, but it inspired my friend Helen to go as well. And she's currently completing, I believe, her seventh quarter now. I'm not sure, somewhere up there, but yeah. It's crazy how such a small little area just had a bunch of animators and them ready to go.
Yes, and where's your friend from?
Uh, Same small town of
So same
Tisdale,
Tisdale?
Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
originally from the Philippines, though.
Oh, I see. Okay. No, because I actually go there. I'm a recruiter. We may have met in person like we're doing this on over the internet, of course, and I haven't actually been on campus. I'm usually the recruiter who goes up to Saskatchewan for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, and comes home and reports back and things like that. So,
Well, you're
but
certainly doing a good job then.
well, thank you. Yeah, I remember one boot camp in particular. We had a whole bunch of students come from Saskatchewan, which was pretty cool. And you said you came to boot camp one year? You,
I did, yeah. I took the ZBrush.
oh, awesome. Yeah, that's actually something we love to do. It's like my favorite thing we do all year is boot camp. How it's unfortunately it's been because of COVID has been kind of up and it's kind of we did deliver it this year, but in a very different form. But normally every year we like boot camp. We just love it. We usually get like over 100 and some kids from all over Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, and so how was that for you coming from a small town to Kelowna and doing even just the boot camp? How was that for you?
For me, it felt like such a big change and such an investment for my little family to just sort of hike up there and have me there for a full, I believe it was a full week. And it
Mm.
was interesting because for me, I absolutely loved and latched onto everything, but I hit a spot where it was so hard for me to get over that learning curve, especially so quickly for learning ZBrush. And I found that for some reason it just wasn't clicking in my head. And so around sort of the middle of the boot camp, I began to panic and I wasn't sure, can I do this? Can I not do this? And it was actually one of the professors that stepped in and helped me to, sit down with Trent and really find a way for me to learn and be calm and just find my way along my journey in this school. And that's what stuck up to me the most, where when I hit a wall where I wasn't sure, is this the right place for me? Can I keep going? That people were willing to sit down with me and really encourage me and calm me down and help work through in my own way how I was, going to reach my goal in this. I found that phenomenal. And even though Cato was absolutely praised for being able to teach, advanced technology and all this other stuff, it's the teachers themselves and the connections you build in that school that mean the most to me.
Wow, that's great to hear. Honestly, it's wonderful. I mean, it fills my heart full of joy. Honestly, to hear that it was one of those things where, and that's something. This is just hearing this now. This is new to me, and I'm always there at boot camp, but I didn't hear about this. So I'm glad that this it turned out well, and the school reacted how I would hoped they would have
Yeah.
reacted. So that's wonderful. And then you ended up coming to the school full time as well and moving here. So that's great too.
Yeah, I actually moved here twice.
Oh, moved here twice. Okay, I'll have to hear about that then.
Oh goodness, where do I start?
If you want.
I guess it starts with back in October of, 2018 when I had moved here with Helen actually and started going to the school, had a great time. And then I'd realized that, from the stress or eating or whatever, my periods weren't really coming. And for me, that isn't an abnormal thing. That's just sort of the way my body works. However, I found out around Christmas that not only was I pregnant, but I was 5 months along and I had no other symptoms. So
Oh
it
wow.
was quite a shock to me because obviously nothing had happened in the 5 months. So to realize that with no symptoms you're 5 months pregnant, it's quite a shock. But everybody was absolutely supportive and loving, and we're all excited about this. And it was with my partner Curtis, so there was no worry about that. And it was the start of quite a crazy journey because I had I had a contraceptive in, which is a copper IUD, and for whatever reason it failed. And yeah, so I got all my appointments done, baby's happy, healthy, and so I decided, well, let's try and get through this quarter because my due date was supposed to be in May. Quarter was supposed to end in, well, before that, I think it was like February.
Hmm.
March, I think it was March 20th it was supposed to end. So I ended up talking with all the professors saying, hey, uh, can I try and sort of speed things up here and double down and really get my assignments done on time so that I can move out and be at home in Saskatchewan for when I have this baby? And they're like, well, absolutely, we'll do our best to accommodate that. And so it was crazy because I spent my lunch hours with Norm in the little lunch area going over next week's animation assignments and just really like powering through this and being pregnant and being there all alone. And so it was crazy because everything was aligning, everything was doing good, I was on track, and then I had a leak in my water. So at first I wasn't sure what it is, so uh, it was one of the nights when I was gonna go to school and finish up my studies, and I was excited because the next day I was going back to Saskatchewan, so I was like, well, whatever. So I get in my car, start driving to school, and then more water leaks. I'm like, okay, we gotta figure this out. So I drive myself to the hospital,
Oh, wow.
and I can't find anywhere to park, so I actually park in the cancer center with no parking ticket because I didn't have my wallet on me. And I hobble into the emergency room, and for whatever lucky stroke I had, there was no waiting line. So I just sort of walked in, and we sat down at the counter with the front lady who couldn't really read my Saskatchewan health card, because when we're assigned them at birth, the numbers rub off over time, and there's
Mhm.
still the indent of it, obviously, but it's not coded in black. And so when she realized that I was at that point, geez, 7 months pregnant, 7.5 months pregnant. She's like, well, yeah, we got to get you up to the maternity ward. So, long story short, I was put up in the maternity ward. I had to call my mom because they had me on top of the list to go to New Westminster on an emergency plane, because if I were to give birth there in that hospital, they wouldn't have been able to support a child born that early. So
Wow.
I was airlifted to New Westminster, very disappointed because I was hoping to fly to Saskatchewan that day, but that did not happen.
Hmm.
So my mom, when I had called her, uh, bless her heart, she was actually able to, from this tiny town of Tisdale, pack up in less than 20 minutes, drive to Saskatoon, which is 2.5 hours away, and catch a last minute red herring, or I don't know what you call it, but last minute flight within
A
four
red eye?
minutes of it taking off. Yeah, red eye flight. And so she arrived just as I was going off in the ambulance. So we picked her up in the ambulance from the airport, and we ended up going in the ambulance to Tim Hortons because the emergency plane had some sort of malfunction with it. So we had to wait for the second one to come. But anyway, I was airlifted. I ended up having to be in the hospital for, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks. It's all such a blur to me. But then I had Alora, my beautiful bouncing baby girl, at 2.5 months early. So
Wow.
I wasn't able to finish my courses, but they were able to keep me enrolled as a student, so I kept all my insurances through my mom, which was great. However, all of the insurances were now fighting because nobody knew who was going to pay for me to go back to Saskatchewan, because now that Alora was out of me, I had to stay there with her. Obviously, they couldn't really do much until she was full term and released from the hospital.
Right.
And there was no way that I, without a house, was going to find a way to stay in New Westminster with my mom for like 3 months,
Oh,
assuming
wow.
everything went perfectly. So we ended up getting a second insurance through Blue Cross, because even though I had been cleared to fly because I had autism, and that was my reason for needing to be home, that classified me as a medical emergency for needing to be home, uh, I was cleared to fly, but Alora wasn't. So I could go home, but Alora couldn't come with me. And so, yeah, it's a little bit messed up, but we were able to add a new plan and add Alora as my dependent on that plan. And so we were able to, through my diagnosis of autism, have her be my support person. My mom flew by herself home, and Alora and I were transferred on the second emergency plane. And that was nuts because they were arguing, well, who's going to pay for it? And it ended up being, well, the provinces don't need to fight, it's the Blue Cross that's going to pay for it. And so we had a NICU team from Vancouver come to New Westminster and like fly us to Saskatchewan using a plane from Ontario.
Wow.
So we
Hmm.
arrive home, everything's good. Curtis and I were able to get our own place and raise Alora while I took a year off of school. So then once we were all ready to move and go, which happened to be on December 31st of last year, we bundled everything up. Kurtis flew with Alora in his lap to Kelowna, and my dad and I and my brother's girlfriend drove in two vehicles with all of our stuff all the way to Kelowna, which was nuts because we happened to choose a date which was just the time when a huge blizzard hit. So thank
Oh my
goodness I was
goodness.
able to use my great small town country driving skills to get through these mountains with almost zero visibility because we were able to pass one of the major highways, uh, and after we had passed it and like literally an hour later it was shut down for impassable. We had to pass a snowplow that had derailed off of and needed to be saved by a second snowplow. It was
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
ludicrous, but we made it. So here we are, and now COVID hit.
Wow.
I know, hey?
Wow. There have been some stretches on this podcast where I just kind of sit back and listen to some stories from our alumni and instructors and stuff. That was the biggest roller coaster I've been on so far,
Oh,
for
no
sure.
kidding.
That was a great story. Holy
Well, the
cow.
the craziest part was that it took probably 8 months to figure out all of Laura's paperwork because as a Saskatchewan resident, when I gave birth in BC, Laura didn't qualify for a BC care card, but because she was in the NICU, she needed one. So she had a temporary care card number that she needed, but also she wasn't able to have.
Wow. All the red
So
tape and paperwork, eh?
oh, no
Jeez.
kidding. But now she's, Saskatchewan resident. We're all good. We got our extended health care to be able to be covered fully in BC, which is something you need to let the government know if you're going to be living in BC for longer than 3 months and all
Yeah.
that fun
Of
stuff.
course. Of course. Wow, that's quite this, and this is just for me because I drive those highways. Like I said, I go out to Saskatchewan all the time, and I drive there. I don't fly, so I know those highways. So did you go like Calgary through Golden,
Yeah,
like that way? Yeah, that
yeah.
the
We
well the main
skirted
like
around
Highway 1.
Calgary.
Yeah, that's the way I go too, and I try to go over those roads at the best of times, and even then it's not always the best. Going through the Kootenays is the worst through like Golden through Revelstoke, but
Hmm.
for me anyways. But anyways, yeah, that was yeah.
Quite the life we
I gotta
live,
catch my
hey?
breath here. Gotta catch my breath. Yeah, that's quite the story.
Yeah,
Quite
sorry to
stories.
derail you there, but
No, not at all. Not at all. That was definitely worth the worth the wait there. Just hearing you tell that story was great. So anyways, so all that happens, and we can is that that's your baby in the background. We're hearing here a little bit here and there.
yeah,
And
that's Curtis
all
with her in the bedroom. We're just
that's
in a
all.
little one apartment suite, or
Yeah.
one
And
bedroom suite.
cool, great, and everything's healthy. Everyone's happy.
Oh
That's
yeah, it's
wonderful.
wonderful.
Yeah, that's great to
We're all
hear.
caught up on our shots. We're getting our wisdom teeth taken out as soon as insurance responds of how much they're going to cover. Yeah.
Well, well, it just keeps coming, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, life never stops.
Oh, of course. So okay. So you eventually got back to the school. You were there initially and got back there. But growing up in Tisdale, did you like to just? No, sorry, I should have clarified before. Are you in the 2D or 3D?
I am in the 3D animation for game,
3D.
film, and visual effects.
Great. I guess that makes sense because took the ZBrush course. So did you grow up like doing a lot of drawing and things like that? As far as
Yeah.
like a lot of sketchbooks and things like that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
My mom says I've been drawing ever since I was able to hold a crayon. And I still have this picture of my dad that I drew in all purple of him as a hungry, hungry hippo that we found somewhere hidden away in the porch, which is really funny. But yeah, Curtis and I actually have our art-based little, I guess, side hobby business, whatever you want to call it. We're Color Eclipse Art. And it's cute because Curtis and I actually met at the Saskatchewan Expo where they do all of, the fan-related stuff for
The Fan Expo.
TV
Yeah.
shows. Yeah, the Fan Expo.
Yeah, I
It's
go
kind of like
I go
Comic-Con,
there
but
every year.
cooler.
Yeah. Well, I have a table set up there every year. So again, we've probably met at some point.
Oh, probably. Sorry for the baby noise.
That's okay.
Just trying to escape
That's
the bedroom.
good, healthy baby sounds. That's all good.
Oh yeah, full of spunk and vinegar.
Absolutely. So you no, so you met at the Fan Expo. You said it's got Saskatoon
Yeah.
Fan Expo.
Yeah, it was really funny because we actually met on Tinder, which was really funny because my mom had no idea what it was, and of course my brother knew what it was. So my mom, when we had first met at this Fan Expo, and he was an absolute doll. He helped carry all the stuff in, carry all the stuff out. He was there helping show me and all my friends around of what was sort of the coolest stuff because he's, native to Saskatoon. He absolutely loves it there. He was born and raised, so is a lot of experience in Saskatoon, and me being from a small town, I'm like, wow, there's actually a McDonald's in the 30-minute radius of where I'm standing. Um, but yeah, so my mom was really worried that like, oh, you're going home with this strange man who you've never met. And I'm like, well, no, we know each other, we've met, online and all this other stuff. She's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, Tinder. And she's like, oh, well, what's Tinder? And I'm like, it's a dating app. And my brother just looks at me like, really? And I'm like, yeah. But yeah, sometimes it works out, hey?
Oh wow, yeah, of course. You gotta try things, right? You never know.
But yeah, one date
Absolutely.
led to another, and here we are.
Great. So yeah, so and drawing and all that, and being a very artful person, you said led you to the school, and so how was it now coming here? At least that initial time you were at the school, and like your first couple classes, was there a sort of a culture shock there coming to the school? How was that?
For me, it was the environment that was very different, obviously. Coming to a big city like Kelowna from a small little town was quite different. It's strange being in an apartment and hearing cars go by instead of frogs croaking in the distance. And, there's no wolves howling. And whenever you see headlights go by, it's not because your neighbor's coming over, it's just some person in a car going, to their 6 a.m. flight or whatever. But yeah, and being able to drive to school within 5 minutes was absolutely shocking to me because we live on an acreage 15 minutes from Tisdale. If you want to go pick up the mail, you gotta get in your car, you gotta drive for 15, 20 minutes, you gotta go to the post office. And so the convenience of everything was very interesting to adjust to and realize that everything's a lot easier here. But in a way, I've really missed Saskatchewan because there's just something about the challenge of having to do something that makes it a little bit more satisfying. If you have to drive all the way to Melfort for Tim Hortons, that's going to be a dang good coffee. Although now they do actually have a Tim Hortons in Tisdale, which they are incredibly proud of.
Oh wow,
Little small town things, yeah. But I think
good for
it
them.
wasn't too much of a difference or difficult situation for me because it felt so welcoming. Everybody there was inclusive, diverse. It was, all the kids and teenagers and adults who had the same mindset as you. It was very liberating in a way to, come out of this very um I don't know how to describe it, but very one-minded sort of community where everybody's a farmer, everybody's usually in a straight relationship, everybody's driving the same cars and have the same experience to this little bubble where everybody has different perspectives and backgrounds and different living situations, different histories, different goals and aspirations, but they have that same mindset where you can talk to somebody and it feels like you're talking to a alternate timeline of yourself. It's absolutely fascinating. And that's what I love the most about it is being able to connect with anybody. You walk up to somebody at a table, you can say hi and introduce yourself, and they're not going to look at you like, what is this weird kid, coming up to the jock table trying to like strike up a conversation with me. They just dive right into it.
Well, that's great to hear that you were able to make that adjustment. That not everybody can. Sometimes we do have students who get homesick, and unfortunately, they have to go head back home for whatever reason. And but that's great that you're able to make that adjustment. So, and early on, did you have like a favorite class, your favorite teacher, maybe? Not to play favorites,
Um,
but
It's hard to decide because I found that each teacher has their own strengths and their own struggles, and of course, they have their different personalities, so they interact differently with all students. But to me, as a whole, I absolutely love that we're seen as people, that we have those, diverse relationships with teachers because we're not just a number here. You're an actual person with, personality and strengths and weaknesses and aspirations. And for me, I think the teacher that I jived the most with was probably Sean, because I don't know, Sean's just adorable. he's a bit he's a bit shy, he's a bit quirky, but he knows what he's doing, and he's always there to lend a hand if you need one. And just it feels like you can talk to Sean about anything. And I think that's something that you really need in, the animation head for the department, is somebody who's easy to talk to, is really friendly and compassionate and really understands and cares. The teachers are all excellent listeners and able to really adapt to whatever situation you're in that you need a little bit of help with.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's wonderful. Have you had a favorite homework assignment? Is there something you are in particular proud of that you've worked on so far at the
Mm,
school?
that's a really good question. Because there's so many different things that I love for different reasons. It's like I really loved life drawing because you get to really understand how to take something that's 3D and make it 2D, but still have that 3D feeling. And so I really loved all the assignments that allowed for us to take things in our own spin of things, to be able to sort of walk that path and get to that generic end goal, but do it in our own way with our own colors and our own sort of spunk put into it. And so I loved being able to really put my personality into my drawings and still be able to follow like the guidelines of what you're actually learning in that class. And then I absolutely love storyboarding because I love the idea of being able to uh, logically put down the events of a story, like a little bit of a flip book, onto paper and be able to string it all together so it's all coherent. And even in Like and Follow, that was one of my favorite aspects, was storyboarding. And for storyboarding, I actually had over 300 panels for Like and Follow, so that's pretty cool.
Wow, that is a lot. Oh my goodness. Jeez. So yeah. So going forward, I know you're in the middle of classes and things like that. Now we're kind of promoting this like and follow. Do you have any sort of in the future plans? Do you have a place you maybe like be like your dream job or anything like that, or looking forward, or?
Well, I mean, people always make the joke of, a few years ago, what are you doing in 2 years in 2018? It's like, oh, I don't have 2020 vision. It's like, now that 2020 is hit, nobody knows what's happening in the future. But in my ideal situation, if we're keeping it realistic, that I haven't sprouted wings to fly and, it's all free everything, but
Hmm.
um, I'd say I'd absolutely love the opportunity to work in the animation department at Disney or Pixar, some film studio where I can breathe life into stories like this. I love being able to take a static character and through the way they move and interact with the world, show and broadcast that colorful personality or gray personality or whatever they have inside them, and really bring that to life, make it something relatable, something that feels real. And it's interesting because I believe that passion comes a little bit from my autism, because even though people don't really notice it with me, it's interesting because a lot of my struggles with autism are very internal. Most people don't see them, but I have to sort of overcome them to work with the world. And one of those things is that I don't recognize faces. So the way I identify people is I need to watch them move. Everybody moves in a very characteristic way. It's how you open a door, how you lean against a wall or pick up that cup. It's how you cock your head to the side when you laugh, or how you move your eyes when you're trying to think of the next word to say. And I love being able to use sort of my in depth analysis of how I navigate the world and recognize people, and be able to attribute that to making my animation sort of next level. And I think it's really cool because through talking with all the professors at the school and learning everything that I am, I'm actually able to connect those dots and start actually being able to apply myself in the way that I always dreamed of.
Wow, that's amazing to hear that. Actually was going to be my next question about how that how autism would affect your art, and you just answered it for me. That's wonderful. Um,
Yeah.
I
And I mean,
so go ahead.
art specifically, my mom always found it fascinating when I was younger that I'd absolutely be intrigued by little nuances in the world that she never would have thought of, whether it's the way the ceiling is held together in a mall with all the different, bits and bobbles, pipes, and bits of tape or whatever they have up there. I just found it fascinating. Where when you look at a gravel road, I don't just see the gravel road, I see every little piece of gravel on that road. I see the different color, the shape, the way it interacts with the lighting. The little sparkles always catch my attention. And even though that can make it a little bit harder to focus at times, or a little bit harder to see, the big picture rather than just a little detail, it allows me this perspective where I'm able to share something unique with the world and really find little gems that I enjoy.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's very well put. That's amazing how you don't I don't get that perspective. So to hear you vocalize it like that and try to visualize it myself, how that would be, that's fascinating. We could go on for another hour talking about this, but you have a toddler, so yeah, maybe we should, and we'll hopefully once you graduate, maybe we can get you back on the podcast here. We can have talk about that some more.
I think that'd
Um,
be fantastic, sure.
Absolutely. But let's talk about your film, Like and Follow. Let's go back to that. So this you did this with Curtis during the pandemic, that initial start of the pandemic. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, cool. And so tell me more just about the process, because it's through Storyhive, correct?
Yeah,
How
so we
did the idea come
actually,
first, or the contest come first, or how did that all work?
pardon?
How did it all come about? Because the Storyhive is something you apply for, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was a grant that we were offered to apply for, and of course, we submitted it. And we were absolutely awestruck when we found out that we were one of the 10 selected groups from the area. And so, what had happened was, after we were selected, of course, we got in contact with Real Youth, who is the one to sort of facilitate everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they got funding from TELUS Storyhive, these big $10,000 grants. They got 10 of them. And so it's sort of like Real Youth is the employer, TELUS Storyhive is the customer, and we're the people getting all the stuff done. It's this absolutely amazing process where Real Youth has encouraged these sort of minority or marginalized groups to apply and really taking care to make sure that we are heard and accepted in ways that we aren't normally heard and accepted. Sorry, are those dishes sort of getting in the way here?
Oh, you should be okay. Should be fine.
No, okay, cool. So, yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. Once we had been selected and obviously talking with Real Youth, we were invited to a workshop of some sort that lasted, well, I guess two of them. It was workshops that lasted 2 days. And when we went there, we were able to meet with all of the other groups to share our ideas and refine our processes and how we were going about everything. We were assigned a mentor, and our mentor was Dan. And Dan is an absolutely incredible human being for working with our group and making sure that we were all taken care of as people during these times. Nothing was too hard for us to do, making sure that we always had the support and the drive and everything behind us to make sure that we succeeded. And through the support of these mentors, through the funding from TELUS Storyhive, we were able to really breathe the story to life. And we were given a prompt for making these stories. It was to do, well, we could pick our own. So it was to do with either tech addiction, cyberbullying, connection versus disconnection, all of those sort of encircled, overlapping problems that they wanted to make the highlight of this series, so to say. And for ours, we chose connection versus disconnection and also tech addiction. Because personally, obviously, as a 3D student, I have a lot of tech in my life, and it's at times difficult to pull away from it and to connect to the world around me without, having it to connect with my phone in some way or another, or connect with my friends through my phone rather than the friends that I could have invited to walk with me physically. And obviously, COVID threw a wrench in that. It was a lot more difficult to find people who were available to work on the project. It was a lot harder mentally to be able to push through and get all your deadlines done and make sure that everything was balanced out, especially with Cato going online temporarily. It was very challenging to overcome all of these changes and different obstacles, being able to utilize our strengths and our support to be able to, make amends, make adaptations, be able to still tell the story that we want to tell, but be able to tell it in a more realistic way. And even though maybe it wasn't as long or included as many things as we wanted, in a way, I think it worked out for the better because our story is short and sweet and it's beautiful.
So, and on that note, tell us more about Like and Follow. It follows two
Yeah.
characters, correct?
Yeah, of course. Like and Follow follows our two characters. Awinita is our main First Nations Indigenous character, and it follows around her and her androgynous date, Kai. And it's very fun because Awanita's name was chosen by our team of Indigenous artists that we have to help us out with creating this. And Kai's name was chosen by all of our friends and family online who wanted to find, a name that just fit the character. And we did it during June, which was Indigenous History Month, as well as Pride Month, which was really fitting, I believe. It was really fun to be able to sort of finalize these characters and really give them all of the meaning that they deserve to have. And so in this story, Kai and Awanita uh, meet on their phones, they match on a very inclusive dating app, and they end up going for a date at a coffee shop. And so on the way there, Kai forgets their phone on a bench, and this raven ends up seeing the phone and swipes it.
Hmm.
So as soon as Kai realizes that his phone is gone, Awanita takes the lead and says, let's go ahead and let's find it. And so they find this poster, they find a tracking app where they're able to locate the, proximity of the phone, and they take a bus together up this mountain. And the raven becomes their sort of guide on this journey of genuine connection. So Kai and I need to overcome all these obstacles, try and get this phone back. And I'm not sure how much I should go into it, but it ends on a really, really sweet note of Awanita and Kai sort of leaning into each other on the top of this sort of plateau that they've reached, finally with the phone together, and they've decided that instead of going ahead and taking the selfie to share it everywhere, pushing it all back to social media, that they're going to put the phone away and focus on each other and the beautiful sunset that's in front of them.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. So, tell me more about the process. So, you worked with other artists, you said, correct?
Yeah, so how we went about it was obviously we started with all of the concepts and sort of ideas and focused them all together during those workshops with all of the other teams, their feedback with Dan. And from there, we went to designing a little bit of a script, that storyline of how it's going to go. And what makes Like and Follow uh, individual and unique is that it doesn't actually have any voice acting or any voices at all. It's all this beautiful dance of musical audio and visual animation. And we wanted to keep it very much up to the interpretation of whoever's watching it to be able to relate to it and really immerse themselves in the experience without being bluntly told, this is what it is and this is what that is. And so in order to do that, we ended up having several drafts of what we wanted to have happen, the sequence of events and all these other different ideas. We had things that went well, things that didn't go so well. But once we had refined that, we were designing characters. And so I was the one who designed Awinita and Kai, and they had so many different faces and outfits, but we had settled on the designs that we settled on, which were absolutely really cool. We wanted to have the long hair for Amanita, and we wanted a color that would make her pop, so we chose bright yellow and just some regular gray slacks, and then some moccasins as well, which I really like to include a bunch of different indigenous cultures in this, despite not being indigenous myself. I am fully aware that I am just a white person, but I feel that as a Canadian citizen, I want all parts of Canadian history to have the opportunity to be seen, and you don't often see Indigenous characters in animations or TV or film unless it's something cliche, and I didn't want that. I wanted Awanita to just be Awanita, to be a character that anybody can relate to and see themselves in. Same with Kai being sort of that representation of the LGBTQ community. And not only is their sweater the bi flag, it's also the androgynous flag sideways, and I thought that was pretty cool. So we're able
Mhm.
to include all these little different things. And once we had our characters settled on and we had the storyline settled on, we got into storyboarding. And that's a process where you take the events that happen and you write them all down as pictures and as, arrows and everything that's physically happening and how you see it happen. Sorry, I'm a little bit rambling here. But
That's okay.
once we had the storyboard put together in an animatic, which is where you take all of these frames and roughly time them out in a video, Curtis was able to then leap in with his arsenal of friends and be able to compose an audio track that went along with everything that was happening within the storyline to sort of arrange all of the music in a way that really flowed with the emotions and atmosphere for each scene, which I thought was absolutely amazing because I'm not an audio person. I just listened to that and went, wow, that's good. So from there, I felt inspired to really make the animation happen. But in animation, you need your background and you need the animation that's happening on top. So I realized that we had over 50 backgrounds to make for this. So I sat down and I said, it takes me about an hour to do a background. That's 50 hours just for backgrounds. I can't do that. I don't have that much time. And so when I reached out to try and find animators from the local area, it was during COVID, everybody was busy, either overworked, didn't have time, didn't have sort of the mental energy to buckle down and help me on this. I was able to reach out to my Facebook groups and say, hey, all of my fellow artists from across the world who'd like to jump on this bandwagon, and through the funding we got from Storyhive, be able to actually pay artists to contribute to this. So once we had our arsenal of background artists from all around the world, we had artists from across Canada and the United States and the Philippines, absolutely everywhere. It was quite interesting to be able to sort of overcome the language barriers, but we were able to uh, get a bunch of backgrounds together, and so I edited it so that all of them looked, coherent, cohesive. One's not from a different thing versus another. It's all from the same story, so they all have the same style. And I am absolutely proud of everybody who worked on it. And our Indigenous artists that I found, we were also able to pay, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to help us sort of get the word out there and really have their own take on what they feel our story means to them. So I was able to not only be able to go to them for feedback on, hey, what do you think of for a name for this character, and what do you think on this? I was actually able to say, hey, I want you to put your feelings into words, and we're able to pay you for it and share it with obviously the audience that's going to be seeing this film. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic to be able to work with so many people from different walks of life and make sure that I'm not stepping on toes and that I'm actually properly representing people from all these different communities. So once we had sort of all that team, I was able to bunker down and do all of this animation. I did it in Sketchbook Pro, which is kind of funny because I should have learned Adobe Animate, and I at the time didn't have the mental capacity to really overcome that learning curve to learn vector instead of raster and all this other stuff. So when I worked in Sketchbook Pro, I was doing this frame by frame, and you work in 2 layers. So that was extremely limiting, where I could only have, color on one and line work on the other. So I ended up flipping, copy pasting back and forth and being able to sort of make small amends in every single frame. But I did roughly, 5 to 10 seconds of animation per day, which
Oh, wow.
is kind of crazy. Yeah, it equivalated to over 2,000 drawings or something total, I believe. It was something nuts. I lost track, obviously, because I was just pumping everything out.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
we made it all on time. We were able to make it coherent and really look like, the animation was moving. And I am incredibly proud of everything we did. And
Great.
along the way, we got interviews from the Kelowna Castanet and all these other little news outlets, and even the, I don't know what it's called anymore, the R News Now or whatever the Tisdale area
Yeah, I think I saw that.
news
Yeah.
is. Yeah, we were in a bunch of different news articles, which was a little bit overwhelming to be able to have all of that all at once, but also really inspiring and motivational to actually get the chance to do it. That people cared, people wanted to know more, people were supporting us and wanting to be there and just curious about what we were up to.
Well, that's great, and that's wonderful too. Like getting the different perspectives and getting other artists involved and wanting to tell that those stories of those characters. That's really amazing that you're able to do that, and through a great program like Real Youth and Storyhive. That's tremendous. So it's
Absolutely. I
yeah,
really
yeah.
hope that they see this as an absolute win for what they had planned to do, and that despite COVID, we had all persevered and come out on top. So I really want to see them do something like this in the future. I want this to open up the doors to allow all kinds of people from walks of life and across Canada, ideally, to be able to step forward and tell their stories, to be able to get the experience of directing something, to actually participate in something that's a big deal. It's not just a little video on YouTube, it's a $10,000 grant, right?
That's the thing too. The fact that they want people to do these things, but also they kind of put their money where their mouth is, kind of thing, and they actually have people. You were able, like you said, to pay the artists and things like that. That's tremendous. That's wonderful that they're able to do that. So, and I can't wait to see this. All this stuff I've heard about it and read a bunch of articles, and uh, we've been kind of going back and forth with the emails and things like that. It's I'm really looking forward to seeing this. So, good job
Well,
there.
yeah. Thank you for the support. I'm hoping to do a little showing at Cato as well once it's, safe to do so in their little theater.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. We would love to put on some sort of, yeah, it's hard in these the times we're living in now, but at some point, yeah, we would love to do some sort of like a premiere or a film screening of it or something like that. We'd love to promote the heck out of it for sure.
Well, absolutely. And the beautiful thing is the video will always be there. It won't lose itself to time or, become not trendy anymore because it's a love story. And I like to think that love is eternal.
Absolutely. Tremendous. Yes. Well, it's wonderful talking to you, Shai. And if we can get Curtis on the line here for in a minute there to maybe get into more of what he was involved with on the movie. But it
Yeah,
was
for
great. It was
sure.
great talking to you. And again, we'll have to do it again
Absolutely. I
again
will
sometime.
get the audio director on for you right here.
Great. All right, and we're back here on Cat Chat for Center for Arts Technology, and we're here with Curtis Pescaloway. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks.
Great. So, Curtis, you are involved with Like and Follow, as Shai was, and you were the audio director. Is that editor, sound designer? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Pretty much what I kind of wore the hats of in this project was I told Shy, hey, look, you're good at animation, you're good at drawing, you're good at talking to people. If you want to do all those three things with what's relevant to your end of the animation, that'd be great. What I'll do is I will do the same, but for the music end of things. And that kind of took a big load off of her because she isn't as much of a audio savvy person as I am because I went to school for it. It's like a hobby of mine. Whereas for her, it's more just like, oh, this is something I need to get. Like this is a hurdle I need to get over to do the other thing that I actually want to do. Right. So that's where I kind of stepped in and took those hats on. So I was in charge of the audio, I was in charge of the editing. So what we did was we used all of the layers from her sketchbook drawings. They were all sequenced like classical animation, so frame by frame. There was like each scene had a folder of like anywhere from 10 to 80 different images that I just stitched together, and then that would serve as the animation. And then from there, we use the backgrounds, put everything together. I have my audio tracks, which for the most part, I actually knew most of the musicians in it because I contacted them because of the certain style, and we commissioned them to do some tracks or to lend some of the music that already existed in their repertoire to use and license for the film. I think it worked out pretty nicely. Kind of looking back now, there's a few things where I would change, but like as an artist, that's gonna always be the case. Stepping out of that shell, I'm very happy with how our film has turned out, and I'm very excited for the release coming up soon.
That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, because I'm looking forward to it, to watching it after seeing all these articles and talking to you guys about it. I'm really encouraged to follow it, and when it comes out on Storyhive and all that on reelyouth.ca, I believe. So yeah, so did you go to the initial what was it like a 2-day, what you call it,
Yeah, the workshop.
workshop? That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for.
So we were told about the program, and then we applied, got accepted. Within, I think it was about less than a month, we had the workshop. And essentially, what that was is we kind of huddled up in the Cato photo studio for the seminar where we went over the basics of what a short film is, how to shoot one, different types of cameras, like stuff like that. And for the most part, like very informative. Um, they went over like everything very broadly, which kind of gave you an idea of what you wanted to specialize in your film. Like if say you had a group of a few people, you could kind of off of hearing these sort of introductions to the various hats, you can kind of say, oh, okay, I might be more good at this or this or this, and it kind of gives people that wiggle room, right? Fortunately for me, I took a film program in grade 11 where we did a lot of this stuff anyway. The only thing we didn't do was animation. So when we were going over all these things in the seminar, I was kind of just like, okay, cool, that's still the same. Yep, that's still the same. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Oh, okay. So it was just kind of like a review, and it was really sweet because like it was reassuring because it's been about 8 years. I haven't forgotten anything, but it kind of made me realize that I still like editing and I still like sound, and that's nothing that has really gone away despite um, like a bunch of changes in my life and having a kid and all that sort of stuff. Like it hasn't really gone away, so that was really thrilling to have happen.
That's great. That's awesome. And so, and just a little background here. You're from Saskatoon, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm from Saskatoon. Pretty much lived there my whole life until we moved out to Kelowna here. And yeah, like most of my family is from Saskatchewan, so we were
Okay.
pretty sheltered. Didn't really do much till I was like in my early 20s. Then I started traveling a bit more and kind of seeing the world. And yeah, like I've always kind of come from this sort of like small town city mentality where there's sort of like a community aspect of like know your neighbor, be friendly to everyone, but like you're still in the city, so like there's still like different neighborhoods and stuff. And I found that was kind of a cool um, parallel to what Cheyenne went through with kind of a smaller town with that aspect, and like we kind of filling each other's gaps with what we were kind of missing socially in each other's situations. And that was a pretty cool experience when we first met because like we are very similar, but we're also very different. And I feel like that's also something that makes our work kind of a bit more human, so to speak, like
Mm-hmm.
our animation and our art, because we kind of fill in each other's weaknesses. So it's more of like a well-rounded piece, right? But yeah, like I lived in Saskatchewan most of my life. We met at an expo in Saskatoon, and then it kind of just yeah, everything kind of got awesome from there.
That's great. And that's Just for my own curiosity, what school did you go to in high school?
When I was in Saskatoon, I floated between Evan Hardy and Walter Murray.
I was just gonna
Um,
say, did you go to Evan Hardy? Because I'm actually I recruit for the school, and I'm out in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon all the time, so I've been to Evan Hardy a bunch of times.
oh, so you've been to media school then?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was the program that I took in grade 11.
That's yeah, that's a
So
great program there.
is awesome. I don't know what they're doing now because it is a different teacher, but coincidentally, that teacher also taught me drama at Walter Murray, so I could vouch for him. So I'm not too worried. But yeah, I was in session 12, which was 2012. It has been since 8 years, and they usually do 2 sessions a year. If I'm not mistaken, they'd at least be in their 20s by now. But it's exciting to kind of see that that smaller community evolve, and to know that there's people in Kelowna looking out for us.
Oh, absolutely. It's tremendous. Yeah, it's great. And it's nice for me to go out there because I'm from the Okanagan and BC, and I go out for, 2, 3 weeks at a time to Saskatchewan, to smaller towns like Tisdale, or I've been to, Prince Albert and all around, and
Oh yeah,
down to Estevan and all that. And so it's great for me to see that the fact that I'm there promoting an artistic school, and there are people who with those artistic tendencies, so to speak, in these small towns. And
yes,
and
definitely.
in some cases that's kind of who that's our main demographic. I mean, it's one thing
Yeah,
to go to a big
totally.
city, but that's great to go to the small towns as well. So that's always wonderful to see that. So and some this technical stuff I forgot to ask Shy about. How long is this like and follow? How long is it?
In terms of like screen time.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, and like I've edited it so many times with like title, without title, this and that.
Hmm.
I believe it's just under 4 minutes. It's like 3 minutes and like 42 seconds or something.
Okay, so it is a
We
short
were
film.
aiming for under 4 minutes, so it worked out really well.
Wow, that's great. And the fact that you guys did this all during the pandemic and brought everybody together for that's
Funny
wonderful.
story. I don't know if she really told you, but so the workshop happened in February.
Hmm.
Obviously, crap kind of hit the fan end of March with everything
Yeah,
and kind
yeah,
of the restrictions and precautions
yep.
being put everywhere. Um, in I think it was middle of April. So yeah, February passed, March had passed, April most of the way there. Real Youth had been kind of like put everyone, sat everyone down at the table, so to speak. Obviously, this is over a Zoom call, but we sat over the table, so to speak, and the facilitator was kind of like a bit antsy, like, "Hey guys, look, um, obviously, with everything going on right now, we shouldn't be advocating for crews filming live, without social distancing, all this sort of stuff." And we're just kind of like in ear, out the other because it doesn't really apply to us because we are literally a one apartment animation studio, so to speak.
Yeah,
Like everything else is outsourced
sure.
and we're not in contact with these people. So
Yeah.
we're just like, okay, cool. Essentially, what happened is, I don't know the number, but a vast majority of these films that were already probably just past pre-production into production had to completely scrap them in order to accommodate for the precautions and the restrictions and stuff that were going on.
Right.
So essentially, a few of these groups had to back up as to what they were doing and completely restart and rethink and rescript and do all that to make sure that they could safely film everything.
Right, of course. Yeah.
And naturally, we're like, okay, well, that shouldn't affect us. When it was said, it was like, okay, everyone has to do this. But then we contacted them, like, hey, look, here's the situation. None of that's going to be an issue for us. And we were allowed to continue doing what we were doing, which thank goodness, because we had done a lot of pre-production, and it was to the point where like I wanted to make sure that everything was um, in an Excel spreadsheet. We had an idea for who was doing what and when and where and whatever. Like I wanted to make sure that we were organized for that end of things because I have done production in the past and I have seen short films completely go south because of poor pre-production. So I wanted to really emphasize it on this film. And we were just finishing at that point, just starting the first few scenes when they decided to say, "Hey, look, we might have to change things." So we really fought for the yeah, no, we just did all of this, and thankfully we were able to keep it. So it all worked out.
Well,
But
that's great.
it's been
Yeah.
a wild ride, that's for sure.
Oh, I can understand. I mean, I know I'm a film grad myself from Cato, and I've done some short films and done some 48-hour challenges and
Oh,
all that kind of
40-hour
stuff.
challenges, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
You don't
Actually,
know stress until you do one of those.
yes, absolutely. They're fun, but and especially when they're finished. But
Oh yes.
so I can understand that. But also, yeah, like you said, the pre-production. If you do the pre-production properly and you're all ready to go, then it helps a lot,
If
anyways.
something goes wrong, it won't, because you've done the pre-production. You're
Yes.
prepared for this. Whereas if something goes wrong and you haven't done the pre-production, you're probably spending 2 hours of shooting time thinking up a plan. Your actors are impatient. Everyone's getting hungry. You didn't even hire the craft services guy because you thought you'd be done already, right? So you
Yeah.
kind of have to account for everything to go wrong. And if it does go wrong, not when it does, but if it does go wrong, then you're one step ahead.
Yes, of course, because you hope it won't go wrong, but then probably something will. Something
The
you
more
the
you
la
hope, the more it's going to go wrong.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was always something like, oh, I forgot to bring in the cable for the the camera or something, or
hmm
some small tiny thing,
Slippery
tiny.
slope, though, right?
Yeah, and then once that goes wrong, then everything goes wrong, right?
Yeah.
So
Or you
that
bring the wrong data transfer cable. And, yeah,
something like
exactly.
that. Yeah,
Whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I totally get that. Well, anything else? Any other stories we can hear about this? Like and follow before we wrap it up here, or
um,
that's
I don't know what really Shina has talked about because I was in the room playing with
sure.
the toddler at the time, but
Oh, no problem. No, she filled us in a
um,
lot for most part here.
cool,
So yeah,
cool.
yeah. But I
Yeah,
can't,
I
like I
get.
said, I can't wait to see it.
I will leave on one note.
Mhm.
I'm very happy and very proud of the crew and like everyone kind of pulling together doing this because we have artists and musicians from all over the world working on this, and a lot of them are good friends of mine, like the audio end of the audio people. But we were able to secure a few people from a lo-fi label in San Jose, and the one gentleman who supplied the piano song ended up actually it became the entire theme to the animation. So that's featured at the beginning and the end. And what I ended up doing for him is I made a small animated music video with clips of the film, and we're going to be releasing that once the film's released. So I basically made him a music video as a thank you for lending us his really awesome song that works perfectly with the film.
Oh,
And
that's
I
awesome.
am extremely happy and extremely pumped to show the world and see what everyone thinks.
And does that have a name? Like you said, yeah, it hasn't been released yet. But does what's the
Yeah.
artist
So
name?
the song itself, actually, when we were in pre-production, it wasn't released. It was going to be released as a part of a vinyl compilation. Once the once production wrapped up, it actually released on said vinyl compilation. So it is actually out now. It's called "The Birth of a Sacred Oarfish." The reason why I picked the song is because when I was talking to Octavio, the composer of it at the time, um, it was a very fluttery song, and I was looking for something that would represent the raven in its elegance and its kind of beauty, but trickster kind of persona. So we were kind of looking for something with a really floating melody, something that flowed, something that carried the story. And when he sent me that, I was like, I didn't even have a second. I didn't even have a second guess. I was just like, I want this song. I want this guy on my team. Where do I sign you up? That's exactly what happened, and um, I think it works perfectly. I'm just ecstatic to have the opportunity to finally release this into the wild and see what people think.
That's awesome, wonderful. And and I understand this is going to be released on September 10th of 2020. In case someone's listening to this in the future,
Yes,
in case the pandemic talk didn't tip anyone off of what year this was.
exactly.
Hopefully this is a 2020 isolated incident. But September 10th, this is going to be on the reelyouth.ca website, and I understand YouTube as well. And so we're going to send out the
Yeah.
links as best we can whenever this comes available.
Perfect. Yeah. So as I'm aware, it's essentially We have our live stream premiere at 7 o'clock on September 10th. reelyouth.ca/telus-premiere. If you go to the website, you can RSVP. We don't really require it, but it's good to just have it, and then we send the link out and everyone's there, and it's just organized that way, right? So it's not a mandatory RSVP, but it's there. And we'll be having our film show with the 10 others during the Okanagan Youth Community Stories premiere. So that'll be sometime in the evening on the 10th. And after that, I know Vimeo is a thing. I think YouTube. And then as well, we will also have it be shown on the cable access channel that TELUS operates on. I don't really watch TV, so I don't really know about that end of things, but we pay for our internet. We watch live streams. We don't need TV.
Well, it could be Shaw Cable, it could be Rogers, it could be one
Exactly,
of those.
Any one of them that has a TELUS channel. And as far as I'm aware, even Shaw and Rogers have that. They're just all different numbers. So that's where you can find our animation. And then, of course, on the good old internet, where you can watch it anytime on demand.
Well, yeah, awesome. Sounds good. We're gonna definitely. I'm gonna RSVP as soon as I can here, so I don't forget about it. Because that's what life happens, and you forget about things, and you're like, all of a sudden, oh wait, what about that thing I wanted to watch? So it's a good idea to RSVP for sure. Go on that.
Did you want us to send you the link in case you wanted to hold on to it for any reason?
You know what? I think I have it here. It's like
Perfect.
you said. It's reelyouth.ca/telus-premiere.html, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yep.
Cool. I think I have it, and I'll put a link on this when we upload the podcast and get all the links going too as well. So so everyone knows how to do that and get ready for it.
That'll
for the
help
big premiere.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you, Kurtis,
Exciting.
and great talking to Shy. And I guess that's it. I guess we can wrap it up here.
Awesome.
So
Thanks for having us.
Really enjoyed talking to you guys, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, it was a good time.
All right, take care. Go play with
Thanks
that baby.
so much. Have a great day.
You too.